Welcome guys to Remax episode 57. It's October 26, 2015. I hope you guys had a good week last week. We weren't able to do the show. I wanted to have 4 people about match fixing because, you know, it's a little bit awkward when you do the show on Thursday and they don't even release the balance patch until Friday. So just the scheduling, all of it didn't really work out last week, but we're still going to cover some of the topics that we didn't get to talk about last week, and also the current state of balance, the match fixing scandal, and a few other things. By the way, you can go on Reddit and go ask your question if you have any question you want to ask us. You can also call in. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel. We'll get you in later. I'm sure there's going to be the usual Space Marine, always ready to go come ask questions. He's very dedicated. But yeah, let's get on with the intros. Morrow, what have you been up to, man? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Oh man, I'm doing just fine. Playback qualifiers wrapped up. Unfortunately, I didn't qualify, so a bit sad about that. But in general, having a lot of fun with Legacy and still doing the streaming action.
Nice, nice. And I see the trolling is real in the chat. I could still ban you, Morrow. Be careful. All right. What about you, Penguin? What have you been up to?
Not so much. Just kind of. I've been playing a bit of beta, like a couple hours a day, and then spending the rest of the hours in the day just flaming the beta on Reddit. Not on Reddit, on Twitter, but no. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I was before. So I'm liking the direction of the game, but I'm very, very bad at it. So I'm getting very frustrated, and I can't wait for the actual service to come out so that I don't have 250 ping.
What actually changed from you not liking it to you liking it, do you think?
I think it was actually just more of watching the DreamHack qualifiers and watching some more of the actual tournaments and just seeing from a viewer's perspective the direction that the game is going in, more so than from carriers are really good and I couldn't beat them for a while, and now just like a lot of frustration playing against Terran. But like seeing like the highest level players playing the games, it's like, okay, the direction of the game is actually looking really good. And then from there, just, I don't know, it just seems more enjoyable to me than it was initially, which is good.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really hard to figure out things on your own, and it's nice to see like people that sort of have it together a little bit better, so you get a better understanding of how it works. A little bit like when I watch Morrow, like he spends 30 minutes watching it a replay and watching how to like do things differently, and I'm like, this guy gets it. And then I learn at the same time as his little ducklings. What about you, Beastie Cutie? What have you been up to?
Just practicing lost DreamHack qualifiers. And most recently just lost a tournament to Solar. 2-1, maybe next time.
Damn, dude.
But yeah, just StarCraft.
How did you do in the qualifier?
Not good. Like, I wasn't round away from qualifying. So, pretty bad.
Oh, that sucks. As for myself, I've been playing a little bit of the beta. Me and Mo are close or similar in ranks, in GM ranks. My goal is always to be higher than him, but it's not happening. He's much more consistent. Mo is a god. Actually, you beat me too, not too long ago.
Easy.
Yeah. This fucking guy!
Don't worry, I beat everybody.
Alright. Yo, there's so many Koreans now in the GM rankings. It's really hard to go high. There's just apparently it's Beyond that's number 1 on the ladder, the barcode Terran. It's a bit sad that a lot of them are using barcodes, because that was the fun part of Heart of the Swarm. You got to play a lot of famous Koreans. But anyway, let's go on with the show. First topic is the match fixing scandal. Gerard, that would be the French way to say it.
Gerard, I think is how you pronounce it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yoda and Byung, or B4. I don't know why they call him B4, but anyway.
There's 4 B's in his name, dude.
Yeah, I know, but like, it's like I feel like you're like really butchering the name if you call him B4, because he put so much thought into all the letters, you know. But anyway,
isn't it literally just like a Korean fart noise?
Is it
like the equivalent of like?
Really? Oh,
that's what I heard. I'm pretty sure.
Jesus. But anyway, they're all going to jail, right? They all got caught in match fixing scandal. There was a lot of there were bettors. There were like, what was the article saying? I know. I have the list of the match being thrown. Yoda threw 4 matches, and actually, like, I didn't realize that until today when I was making the notes. He actually threw round of 16 Code S matches. I can understand throwing Pro League matches, but actually throwing Code S round of 16, that's crazy, right? Beastie Cutie, when you found out about that news, what was your first reaction?
I think everyone suspected it going on for a long time. I think it probably, I don't know, I think it just happens for like really long time. And I suspected other players to throw the matches because like Prime was already the worst team, so I didn't expect them to throw.
Mm-hmm.
I expected like teams that would be like rank 5 or 6 in Pro League to throw, but I don't know, I wasn't really shocked. Yeah.
I guess with like the Marine King incident where it looked so obvious, that's when people are like, okay, like something wrong is happening. But Marine King was cleared by MVP on Facebook. I mean, that doesn't mean much, but
and he was cleared by Kespa. They did a very, very thorough investigation of him, and they cleared him.
Yeah? So you believe he's innocent? He was just playing like shit?
Yeah, like, I was at the house at the time, and, like, I can kind of understand him playing like shit because he didn't sleep the night before, like, at all.
Oh,
He'd been
God.
awake for, like, 30 hours. And, like, I mean, obviously, like, I'm way worse than people like Marine King, but, like, I've played tournaments on, like, no sleep. Like, I remember last SC2Remax summer, we got stuck because there was a strike on the trains, so we arrived in Jönköping at, like, 5 in the morning. I had to wake up at like 6:30, so I had like no sleep, and I had to play against Tian, and I 10-pull Banelinged, and I sent my Lings to literally the wrong base because I didn't see where his Overlord was.
Oh, God.
Like, shit like that can happen. So, I mean, it looked really fucking bad, and I understand why why a lot of people thought he was throwing that game, but Kespa did a very thorough investigation, and like, a couple people were saying initially, like, oh yeah, Kespa's just covering it up because they don't want people to know. But like, at this point, there'd be really no reason to cover it up anymore since there's people in prison and people know it's happening.
Yeah, it's crazy. So 12 people, 12 individuals were connected to the match fixing. Only 3 people that we know, the coach and then Yoda and Byungbung. They were brokers and financial backers. They're including a former pro gamer and an esport journalist. I wonder if we'll ever find out who was the former pro gamer. That was.
I think it was one of the brokers was listed as a Protoss who played in StarCraft 1. I can't remember his name.
Oh, okay. So it's no one like super famous or anything.
No.
Okay, interesting. Mo, what were your thoughts on the match fixing?
Yeah, it was like basically I wasn't like that surprised because there has been so much talk over like throw matches. I don't know how long it's been going on, but it's ever since it popped up, it always stuck in my like through my mind, and it just ever since then, to be honest, it just kind of killed the viewer experience a little bit for me. Because whenever a player would make like a huge mistake, instead of me going like batshit, like so exciting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would always be thinking like, oh, well, is this a throw match or what's going on here? And it would just it has been always been like that. So for me, it was a bit of a comforting feeling, you know, to get like this confirmation, you know, to finally like know, like, all right, so like it was going on. I wasn't crazy, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, a bit personally, it was just nice to have that. Nice to have that confirmed. I mean, obviously, we want these guys to get caught and so on, so it doesn't go on forever. But in general, I mean, of course, it sucks for everybody that throw matches are going on and so forth.
Yeah. So apparently, the former pro gamer is called Enough, and he was esports journalist. He played Zerg for Orion. I have no clue. Do you know Orion? Oh, that used to be like former SKT, eh?
I don't know Orion. I was just kind of saying okay about Zerg because I mentioned Protoss before, but yeah, I don't know who he is.
Yeah, it seems to be one of the former like Because you know all the pro teams that are like on telecom themes, they didn't start out that way. So Orion was a former SKT. So anyway, so yeah, they're going to prison. Does it say for how long? That's crazy though. They said the amount of money was about what, $20 to $5,000 to $20,000 per match. That's just, would you do it? Like, okay, Moro, let's say you've been eating like fucking craft dinner, right, for like 2 months straight. You're living in a team house, and you're just miserable, right? Would you ever do it?
Are you accusing me?
No, no.
Why do you think he's
I
gonna race
would,
into Protoss?
no, I would never do that. No.
No. So you.
This never happened. No.
I see.
I legitimately lost to Maru in Premier League when I was in Korea. Yes. So I didn't do it. No.
Okay. I see. What about
No,
you, Beast?
yeah, of course, I'm just kidding. No, I would never do it. Like shitting in games is like the worst thing you can do. And you know, some people like I talked to, for example, he thought like, or this like poor kid, he didn't know what he was doing, or his situation might have been really crappy. But you know what? Like I stand by my principles. No matter how shitty my life would be, I would never go on about throw matches and so forth to get cash.
Yeah.
So I'm very strong about that.
And there's so many crazy angles to it too. MC made a post saying that like his side of things, of like Yoda crying in front of him, telling him like, no, it's not true. I didn't match fix. I don't know why they're saying this about me. I really tried my hardest. And then Yoda was just straight up lying to MC. That must be the worst feeling, right? To have your friend like that just not straight up lie to you about something so huge like that. But then again, like, there wasn't anything MC could have done, even if Yoda confessed. What do you think, Penguin?
Well, like, it can also be seen as like, if you're match fixing, right? If you're Yoda and your friend is asking you, on the one hand, it's really shitty to lie to him, but on the other hand, if you tell him, you're basically making him an accessory if he doesn't rat you out, which then puts him in a really shitty position. So I can
Yoda
understand.
is a hero.
No, he's not. It's like he's an asshole either way, kind of. You know, like.
The amount of matches fixed were like once a month, basically, from April to June, and it started with. Or no. It started in February, and then it happened again in April and May, and then June. The first match was a round of 16 match. So after that, it was a Code match. And then after that, it was a round of 32, and the last one was a Pro League match. So it's safe to say that Prime was legitimately, or whatever that word, like they were legit shit in Pro League. But they only threw 2 matches, according to the report. Do you think there could have been more matches than those 2 thrown?
Maybe. Like what I think about the whole thing is like, you can't really, like, there might be other matches as well, but what I think happened was the first game he threw, they offered him money in a nice way, like, hey, we're gonna give you this much money, all you need to do is just lose the game, like, you don't need to make it super obvious, blah blah. They make it sound really good and like all of that, and then once he does it, he thinks about it and he's like, well, looking realistically at my group or the match, you know, I probably can't win. My chances are like maybe 10% because the other players are better, so I might as well just like get some quick money out of it. And then the next time they asked him, it wasn't as much as of like being nice. It was more of like, if you don't throw the match, then we're gonna tell everyone you threw the one before. So then it's very hard to stop at that point. So I think the first match he obviously did it because he, you know, wanted to do it. Other ones he was probably pressured, or you know, he was just douche and he kept throwing them for money. But I think once you like start throwing matches for money, it's pretty much impossible to stop. And it was just like a matter of time when he's gonna get caught.
Yeah. There was also a report by FOMOS that said that Jared was, he had a lot of trouble running his team financially, and then he even asked friends and family for funds, but then resorted to extreme measures such as throwing matches. What do you think there should be like something like if you're part of Pro League or you're part of Kespa? Do you think there should be like a measure like financial like backing or like something to prevent you from going bankrupt until the end of the year? Something like that, like some rule to make sure like that sort of thing doesn't happen, right? Because when you're the coach, when you're running the team and you have so many kids, like you're feeding so many kids, you're like putting them out. It's like it's almost like you're running an orphanage or something. Like you have a lot of pressure on you to deliver. Do you think, Penguin, do you think Kespa should have something in place to make sure, like, okay, if, like, you're really in the red and your team is gonna die, we're gonna help you until the end of the year and then call it a day after that?
I feel like it would be nice, but at the same time, like, if you don't have the financial backing, then like if you're starting like to make more guidelines of like teams need to have this and this and this to exist and be part of Pro League, then you're cutting out potential teams. You're making it harder to get in, and like in other games that might be fine, but in StarCraft, like there just aren't that many teams. It's very, very difficult to like you don't see very many up and coming Korean teams, for example. Like when Prime is now going to leave Pro League, inevitably, they're probably going to be replaced by an alliance of a couple foreign teams or something else like that because there just isn't another Korean team to sort of step up and fill the void. So I just don't know how viable it is. Like, it would be nice if it was, but I don't know if it's viable.
But, like, if we look at Teammate was a really good example of Kespa taking control and making a team, be successful, and then eventually they found a sponsor, and now they're not supporting the team anymore. Jenner is. So now the only team left that doesn't have like a super big sponsor would be SC2. Although I guess
SC2 is a sponsor. It's more MVP.
It's okay. So I guess MVP. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I think like a sort of like a Moro. What's so funny?
It's a spender those like shoes.
Yes.
So it's literally in the name.
Yes.
I've even seen you make tweets like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy this SC2 shoes."
Yes.
So they are sponsored by SC2. They're called SC2.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's what I was trying to like get at is that it's probably the least big organization out of everything because MVP is like big and lol, right? So they probably pull in more money than SC2 probably is in terms of ROI. At least that's what I would assume. But anyway, you're right, MVP. So I guess these two could be in trouble, and so Kespa welfare could be a thing to prevent match fixing in the future. That's just something I was throwing out there. But thank you, Moro, for your support. Always there for me. Yeah, I do need new shoes. Anyway, so yeah, that covers the match fixing. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. It's twice now in Korea that it happens. All these kids, these young players. Yoda did so much too. You know what? You know whose fault is it? It's Blizzard. Yoda was living the life in Europe. He was making good money, and then he was turned to the dark side by Blizzard, forced to go back to Korea.
Yeah. Okay.
No. I mean, like, if you think about it, if he was still living in Europe, this would have never happened. But yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
Then I go to Yale instead because I'm losing out.
Yeah, poor Mo. Alright, next up we have Axiom. This band, Axiom, was formed back in 2012? Was it 2012 when the first time Crank played at an MLG, or it was 2013? I probably should have done my research.
I think it was 2012.
But yeah, basically it started out by Crank making a Reddit post, wanting some, was it support or something like that? And then, yeah, the team was made September 2012. and so Crank was the first into the lineup, and then later on Alicia, Hart. It was Alicia. Who was at first? It was Elise Short and Ryong first, and then Hart was added for GSTL, and then they formed an alliance with Scarlett and MMA, and then they also had Mia and Impact on their team. It was a solid team. It did really well in 2013. They never won a big tournament, but they were doing well when WCS was in region locked. They went ham, and yeah, like
they won GSTL as well, which is pretty sick.
Yeah, they won GSTL. Well, they did have innovation. I mean, that kind of
it's true.
that kind of helps. But no, it's cool that Total Biscuit was took a risk like that and ventured off. We're definitely gonna miss them. They didn't help so much a foreign scene, but they really helped the Korean scene. So they extended some life into that, especially when it was getting harder for the Korean scene to be sustainable. So Penguin, as a team owner, you run a EU team that also has Korean. So your point of view or your struggles are different than theirs, right? I'm not saying My Insanity is struggling, but like the difficulties or the adversity you face is a lot different than what they had to face, which was being in Korea, having to fly out of Korea for everything, and not being in Pro League or not having anything much to do outside of GSL Code S and Star League. So if you were to take the reign of Axiom, let's say beginning of 2015, what would you have done differently?
Just to clear up, I'm not actually the team owner. I'm just the manager.
Okay, but I mean, like,
so,
you.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like the biggest problem with Axiom, right, is that Axiom was kind of formed, and this is like Total Biscuit was always very open about the fact that he kind of formed Axiom because he wanted to give players a stable environment that may not have otherwise found a stable environment. And the issue that comes with that is that if you're looking to support players that might not find a team, the reason that it's up in the air whether or not they would find a team is because they're not the best of the best. They're not the people with the highest ROI. And so, like, they did pretty well for themselves in WCS, but when they were forced to go back to Korea, the result is that this year the ROI from the team was almost non-existent from the perspective of from my very, very outsider perspective. I couldn't really see what return on investment they were getting for their sponsors. It's like very, very they were present at like almost every event. Like almost every foreign event had like one Axiom player there.
Mm-hmm.
But like they didn't have any super good finishes. I think like the best finish of the year was like Ryung came top 4 at Copenhagen Games, which doesn't really get you that much for your sponsors. So, I mean, the streams, like they all stream. Crank's got a really good stream following, but like the others, they stream a lot, but like they get okay viewers, but not enough to really kind of justify the investment, I would say. So, I don't think it's much of a surprise that Axiom ended up disbanding. But it's really, really sad. But I don't know if there's anything better that could have been done short of picking up new players, maybe dropping some of the players that were on the roster.
Yeah, they seem to be providing really competitive salaries too. So maybe if they made earlier changes, because the thing is they were such a tight family that, you know, they could have made some changes at the end of like maybe 2013 or 2014. You know, get rid of maybe Alicia or. I guess Alicia was the weakest link along with Crank, because Hart and Ryung had some pretty good results. Impact almost won a DreamHack before he left for SKT. Mo, what were your thoughts on Axiom? Did you enjoy their contribution to StarCraft?
Rather the opposite. But that's not exactly Total Biscuit's fault. It's just always been like there's just always been like too many like tied to Koreans going to events that I don't really care about, and I feel like every Axiom player like has that name to it. So I'm glad they disbanded. I can tell you that much. It's understandable why they disbanded. Why the team got formed in the first place is actually a bit weird to me. Like you guys are saying, it wasn't that they were that good. or that they had like the personality or whatever to get picked up on a team. It just kind of felt like Total Biscuit liked them for some reason, and then they picked them up, and it looked like some kind of charity move. It looked like some kind of PR move, to be honest, to pick them up initially, because they were like holy fuck, the circle jerk around Total Biscuit when they picked up all of those players. It looked like an angel coming from the sky. But as the years went on, it was just like, all right, well, when is this gonna end? They're not really doing anything, in my opinion. But then we hear from Total Biscuit, and he's saying, well, we're not actually looking to profit from this. This is actually a this is actually just a charity, what we're doing here. Of course, he didn't use those words, and so forth. So he probably lost a lot of money doing all that. He probably learned a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just regrets the move as a whole. I'm not sure like how much money that guy has, but I think that he invested like very much into those players. I think their salaries were very respectable compared to the results they pulled. So to me, it's just weird that the team existed for that long time. But yeah, I mean, what happened to Total Biscuit now? The news, obviously, it's very tragic. And even if he liked the team Axiom right now and they were doing well and so on, I mean, maybe he had to disband them anyway because he got other shit to deal with now, so he can't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's sad to see Axiom disband because of the reasons.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's hard to say. It's like the harsh truth, but outside of Ryong and Impact, their lineup never really made waves. I mean, they had good success in 2013 because of WCS, but as soon as they got back to Korea and being forced to play in GSL and SSL, they just didn't accomplish anything. And yeah, like you said, Total Biscuit. The thing though is, I don't think he lost that much money because they always had solid amount of sponsors. I mean, Oski was sponsoring them for a while. They had GOG, the GOJ or whatever. No, it's GOG. The website. They had like SanDisk, they had the keyboards, they had a bunch of sponsors, but yeah, looking back on it, there's a lot of things he could have done better. I always wondered why, like, for a while, Nani was teamless. I think it was like before he got picked up by Alliance. I always wondered why he didn't go for a foreigner or two to kind of, I mean, if it's charity money at that point, right? Why not pick up a foreigner? But
okay, so
go ahead.
So this is what I think. Back when he made a team, I don't think they were tier 2 Korean pro gamers. I think all of them were really good at that time. Now they're not like tier 1, but back then, like, I remember Alicia he had like 3 or 4 second place finishes in big tournaments, and I just checked, and he had like 3rd, 4th place in 2013 on lands. I remember Ryang was doing really well. Hart, one tournament he would do really poorly, and the next one he would do like beat players that were like, compared to him, supposed to win and are better. I remember his TVZ was always good. So I don't agree that they were tier 2. I think they were quite good when he picked them up. But I don't think he picked them up. Obviously, they were not the best. But I don't think he picked them up because of that. I think he, developed some kind of emotional attachment to all of them. So when he picked up Crank, if I remember, it was like some kind of funding for a tournament for him to go to. I think it was MLG. He helped with it. And then once he did that, Crank did like, not like top 2, but he did, I don't know, top 4, 6, I don't remember. And then he decided to sponsor him. He probably talked with Total Biscuit that, Hart, this guy, that guy doesn't have a team. And then he decided to just help all of those guys. I think he helped them because he liked them in person. They were decent players. And the reason why he never picked up foreigners, because we know that Total Biscuit does not think highly of foreigners. I mean, he did say something about WCS being a charity for foreigners. So I think that's why he didn't pick up foreigners. I think they were good, not so much anymore. He went on because, I don't know, maybe it was too hard for him to drop them after some point when they didn't, create results. But you know, some of them are gonna find a team, some of them, you know, might just retire straight up. So we'll see. One of their players already, I don't know if you guys or other people know, but Ryang joined my team a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I'm the one who hooked that up.
Yeah. So I'm happy about that. I think out of the guys that were left, Ryang was probably the best. So we'll see how that goes. He seems like he has motivation to practice again to like be the top player. So I don't know. We'll see. I think Hart might find a team as well.
Yeah, I'm working with him as well. So
for others,
hopefully.
I'm not sure. I knew that back like a couple of years ago, Impact was really good. He never performed well in tournaments, but he was really good like when you played him outside of them. So we'll see how it goes. I think for me it's sad, but you know, like it costs money. It's not free to do what Total Biscuit did for them, so it's understandable.
So Crank retired, and Alicia hasn't done anything in 2015. So yeah,
Alicia wasn't mentioned really in their disbanding announcement either. Like Crank posted on Reddit, and he said at the end, he said if you're interested in signing Ryung or Hart, contact me. So he never mentioned Alicia, so I don't know what's happening there. I imagine that he may well be retiring because he's had an abysmal year.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So yeah, farewell Axiom. They had a pretty kick-ass thingy going on for a while, and that died. Balance patch last Friday. I enjoyed the balance patch. Basically, the carrier was nerfed by 50 HP. The adept got 10 shields back. The Terran, the siege tank got nerfed. So like when it's being dropped from a mid-evac, it takes a while longer to shoot. 0.53 second to 1.43. The Liberator got nerfed a lot. It starts with the defending mode, but the defending mode, the range is decreased to 5. The defender mode upgrade, now it increases the range by 4, and the upgrade requirement is changed to the fusion core. You need a fusion core to get upgrade. The Lurker Den, the morph time increased from 71 to 86. So I just rushed through the update, but we're going to talk each of them in detail. So let's start with the carrier. Mo, I think I've heard you say that you were the one that proposed the HP nerf.
Is this your fault, Mara?
Yeah, this is basically my doing. It might be some other people too, and of course David Kim. So
you have him on Facebook or
I've
something?
talked on the. Yes, actually I do. I'll get to that. So
Nice.
I talked about it on some talk shows. Like carriers were basically dominating. Not every matchup, but they were like pretty fucking good. So what David Kim ended up doing was nerfing the build time, but already then I was under the impression that I think they should have nerfed the HP to begin with. But even on later, I went on and talked to him on these talk shows about what I thought the HP should be nerfed, and this is it. So the way you kill carriers with any race pretty much, outside of Corruptors, is that you basically just kill all the interceptors, whether that be with Liberators or Archon Splash or you know what have you. It's never like you jump on top of a carrier and you just straight up kill it, which just seems kind of wrong to me, because the carrier with the new AI can basically move around freely while it's attacking. It's a very like kind of mobile unit, to be honest, and it can just kite everything. So it just made sense that I think they should have nerfed the HP to begin with. Just nerfing the build time is just, it's, to be honest, it kind of just makes it so you don't even get the unit anymore. And if you do get the unit, then it's just going to be more of the time where nothing is happening, because you're literally sitting there waiting for the carriers to finish. And that's kind of what happened to Ravens in Harder Swarm, is that the game just went on for 20 extra minutes because Terran just had to sit there and build Ravens and wait for the energies. There was no tension most of the time because Surd couldn't break anymore. And Terran obviously just waiting there, so there's just no reason why this death ball should take extremely long time to build. So that's why I think build time on such a late game unit is a bad approach to it. So so that's why I think the HP nerf made so much sense. And yes, I do have David Kim on Facebook now. I've been talking to him for the last few weeks now. Not like every day, but maybe once a week or something like that. I just tell him my thoughts basically.
What a time
So
to be alive,
that's what's
man.
going on with the carrier. Yeah.
You know, you realize, like, what was it, like 2 years ago with Heart of the Swarm beta, we had a Villo talk to David Kim on BattleNet forums, complain all day, and then now, today, what a time to be alive, we have Mo talking to David Kim directly on Facebook. What a change.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that.
What about you, Beastie? The HP nerf on the carrier, does it make it easier to kill them?
They're not really made in PvP anymore, so I don't care. I think it was just for PvP and PvZ. So I think it will help Zerg. I don't know how much it will help them. Like obviously it's you know, good for Zergs. Is Mass Carrier going to be beatable now? I don't think so. But it will help, like if you try to hit a timing to kill them easier. But I think if Protoss reaches like Mass Carrier, you're still fucked. So good for Zergs, I guess.
I see. What about you, Penguin? Have you taken down any carriers since the new patch?
Yeah, I actually won my first game in late game versus Mass Carrier yesterday. But I actually think the health nerf is really important. I don't know if it's enough. I agree with Morrow that the nerf of the build time was kind of silly. I didn't think that it was necessary. I feel like it was the wrong way to go.
Yo, they didn't revert that, by the way, right?
No, they didn't.
No.
Mother.
But like, I really like the health decrease because corruptors are supposed to counter carriers, and they kind of don't as much because they don't have corruption anymore. And corruption was a really big reason why corruptors could take out carriers quite easily. So I feel like decreasing the health kind of compensates for the lack of the corruption ability. So I like that.
Okay. Would you guys be okay with reverting the build time?
Yeah.
I don't think it should be as short as what it was before, but I think they could decrease the build time a little bit, not like too much. Just in general, I don't think carrier is a particularly exciting unit, so it's not exactly what I want to see in the standard metagame.
Okay, that seems like a fair opinion. What about you, Beastie?
I think it's if they do revert, there still might be possibility of people just rushing them. But then again, if they reduce it by like 10-15 seconds, is it really gonna matter in the long run? Like it would be a small buff, but I don't think it would make any difference between, you know, Protoss winning or losing. So I think the problem in carriers is not like, the problem is when you mass them. I don't think carriers are a problem when you have 4 of them, but when you have like 10 plus, well, let's say like 10 and then mass Archon and Void Rays, I think that's when the problem is. So I think simply just making pure carrier is not worth it. So maybe reducing the build time would help Protoss, but I don't know. I think it's short line between Zergs not being able to break it or, you know, kill the Protoss, and then Protoss just not be able to even go carrier from the start.
Okay. Next up we have the tank. The delay increased from 0.53 to 143. That's just, I think it's just better in general, but I'm not a Terran expert, and Morrow's not a Terran expert anymore, so Beastie QD, why don't you go ahead, tell us.
Okay, so I think, so against Zerg, before the patch, he used Siege Tank against Ravager pushes and Roach Ravager. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's actually, like, extremely bad when you get attacked by Zerg. The reason for that is before, if the Ravagers come, you can pick up a Siege Tank, shoot, pick up, shoot, and then the Siege Tanks pretty much become hard counter for Roach Ravager, and you can deal with those pushes like a lot easier. Now with the nerf, 1 second in StarCraft is like too much time for you to like drop the tank, shoot, and go on. Because if you drop the tank, in 1.4 seconds is going to die. Like, it's not going to get the shot off. So it was actually a pretty big nerf as far as Terran against Roach Ravager, which is the only thing Terrans use siege tanks for. You would not use it against against Mutaling, Baneling, or Ultras. So the only part where Terran could use siege tanks got nerfed. And then also to harass the Zerg with like siege tank drop early game, that pretty much got fucked as well. Against Protoss, before the patch, I was finding some interesting builds to use siege tanks with, like timings with 2-3 siege tanks in medevacs. But again, since the patch, that's pretty much dead as well. So siege tank once again became a dead unit in TvP, in my opinion. So as far as TvT goes, it did change, but did it really change anything? No, because you're still going to pick up siege tanks in the medevacs and you're going to still drop them, and it's still going to be better than just, manually sieging them up. So I think Blizzard's goal to, have the siege tank pick up for the retreat is never going to happen this way. Because that's why they increased the time. So you wouldn't use it offensively, but you would use it to like run away, and then you can't abuse the redropping, which I think in TvT was too annoying to play against, like just dropping siege tanks and just blowing up everything. But I think this specific nerf for other matchups just ruined siege tank completely. And I don't think it was OP in the other matchups. I think it was situational. Like, you wouldn't build it always, it was situational, it was good. But now it pretty much makes it extremely, extremely bad. So the change is just terrible in general.
Okay. Very interesting point of view. It would, it's a tough unit to balance. I mean, ever since Wings of Liberty, we haven't seen, ever since Wings of Liberty, that's when tanks were used in TVZ. I mean, outside the TVT, when I'm mentioning, but Moral, what about you? Do you agree with Beastie?
Yeah, I have to side with him. And this is, I don't really understand how Terran versus Terran operates anymore. But I did play Terran before earlier when it had 0.25 second delay between attacking. I think that was a very important patch to give a defender's advantage. So basically, you had tanks sieged up, you had your marine line. If somebody attacked in, you drop your like the other guy drops his tanks and attacks with the bio. So without that 0.25 seconds, you would basically have zero defender's advantage because the tanks would start attacking immediately from both sides, and that was a big problem. And I think that's why you needed a 0.25 second to begin with. But still, this was still short enough for you to kind of use siege tanks, kiting a little bit and, doing micro tactics and all that's fun with the siege tank, with a flying siege tank. And you could find some use against other races. But now when it nerfed it, you basically didn't change this Terran versus Terran interaction with a siege line, except you just made the attacker worse, which wasn't needed, in my opinion. But on top of that, you made the fun part about the flying siege tank is, like, it's kind of irrelevant, like 1.4 seconds, like Bits said, it's too long to use it effectively. So I think it was a bad change, but I still think what I think before is that when you pick up a tank, I think it should just unsiege by itself. So when you retreat, you can basically pick up 2 siege tanks. When you drop them, they're unsiege. Because I don't, like, even though microing with siege tanks like that was pretty awesome and had its cool sides, I think it took away the identity of the siege tank itself. And that's what I didn't like about it. So what I would like to see is obviously what I said about that you pick them up and they're unsieged. But secondly, like siege tank obviously I actually want to talk about a little bit more about a suggestion of my own about the siege tank is that like this unit is extremely bad, but it's always been very good against Terran, and I think you can explain that. So Bio has always been like, it's very small units, tiny units running around, and the only way you kill those units is basically by instant damage or by range damage. So their survival is based around, escaping. So you're kiting banelings, kiting zerglings, kiting zealots, you're kiting everything in the game basically. But Siege Tank as a long range splash unit obviously that's the perfect counter against that. So that's shredding Marines. And then on top of that, you have plus armor damage, which basically just makes them good in mech against mech, because they're going to kill other siege tanks, they're going to kill Thors and so on. So that's why this unit is extremely good in Terran versus Terran, but not against other races, because the other races don't operate in the same way, that they need to escape from the enemy to avoid damage. Like if you attack with a Zerg army, you're expecting to just face tank the damage, and the same goes for Zealots and so on. So that's why you can't just simply buff the tank, because then it's just going to dominate Terran versus Terran. So what I think they could do to solve this issue against being so strong against small units is you basically add what to call it, like pretend it's just an invisible projectile going between. So this would allow tanks to basically overkill. So if there's a Zergling entering, you're going to have 2 tanks fire on it, or maybe sometimes you're going to take 3 tanks firing on it. And this is going to encourage Terran players to spread out their siege tanks like they did in Brood War, and they did overkill in Brood War. And you're basically going to make them a lot worse against small units like Marines and Zerglings and so on. And by having them already worse against those units, which they countered and are only good against, you suddenly open up so many possibilities to straight up buff the siege tank. So I think that's precisely what they should do about that unit right now, to have it have a role in every single matchup and not dominate TVT at the same time.
Wait, what should they do?
So they should basically have a projectile that can't be seen. So this could be like a cast time or whatever between attacking. So they would be overkilling small targets. You understand?
No.
Okay, so let's say you have like 8 stalkers,
yes,
and Zerglings attack. In many situations, you're gonna find those stalkers attacking the first Zergling that enters, right? But this Marines never do this because they shoot instantly, and tanks never do this because they just kill the target instantly. So that's what I would like for the siege tank to do, is to act like other ranged units, basically.
So you want it? So that would be a nerf.
Yeah, that would be a nerf. So through that, during that, later on, you could buff the siege tank, its damage values, to not make it crush tiny units. So you would be overkilling tiny units, and then you would have higher damage against large units, and this would make it more effective and stuff like Zealots and
Man,
whatever.
that sounds like such a tough thing to add to the game or to balance. How would you visually add the projectile? Or something. Don't you like?
It wouldn't be visible.
It's like Brood War.
Cause like the other unit that's instant, right, is the immortal. The rest are projectile in the game, correct?
Yeah, but it is basically very simple. So you would see the tank fire, and 0.1 seconds later you would see the explosion on the unit. It doesn't have to be explained to a casual or anything. That's just how they see what's happening.
Okay.
It's such a short period of time that bad players, they won't even notice it, but it could open up huge possibilities to just straight up buff the siege tank.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. I can't wait to hear your friend Davey listen to that idea, and maybe someday we'll see it in a game. What about you, Penguin? TVZ? Oh, by the way, why? No, we won't get to that now, but yeah, what about you?
Obviously I don't have as deep a thought process on this as the other 2 guys, because I don't play Terran. But from a spectator's perspective, I've thought that the whole idea of just being able to lift and drop siege tanks in siege mode is just really dumb. I think, like Maro said, it kind of takes away from the identity of the unit, and I think it just makes... I just don't think it makes much sense. Listening to Maro, I think the thing that kind of stuck out to me as the coolest idea was that I like the idea that like you can lift up siege tanks and it unsieges them, so you can lift up 2 of them, making it more effective to retreat with. Because I think that's what they're going for with this delay, is that the obvious thing that is that they want it to be more of a retreat thing than an offensive ability. So the idea that Mara proposed I thought was really cool. I wouldn't mind for them to just kind of focus, kind of in the opposite direction of what Mara was saying. I wouldn't mind for them to focus on making the unit better against light and a little bit worse versus armored. And the reason I say that is because Cyclone just is, I feel like, designed to counter armored units, and it would allow them to just kind of make the units overlap less and maybe make them just a little bit better at what they do individually. But yeah, I mean, that's just about all of my thoughts on the matter.
Okay.
I think like the retreat thing I agree with, but the problem is Blizzard doesn't realize that the siege tank is too terrible of a unit to build it in the first place. So if
Yeah,
you
they definitely need to buff it.
So if you put it so like when you pick up it's on siege, that's cool, but why would I make a siege tank that has terrible stats? Like it has fucking god awful damage. Like let's be honest. I agree with Moro's point to like do that. I think that would be cool. But I think for Blizzard to do that, that would change so many things. Like so many things popped in my mind the moment he said that. There's like a chance that people might use Marine Siege Tank in every matchup, because if you do that change, you would need to buff Siege Tank by quite a lot, not like 5 damage. It would need to be like 20 minimum. So then if you do that, who's asked that like, you know, mass Siege Tank bio against Protoss is not going to be the best, especially against Disruptors now. Because it would be, you know, Marines that are spread and just Siege Tanks that are just destroying everything. Even with Overkill, the Protoss units have high HP, so it would only be overkilling Marines and Lings, not so much the Protoss units. And the Protoss units don't counter the Marines and Marauders as hard as they do in Brood War. I mean, the Marines. So I think that would bring a lot of, like, it would be like a snowball effect, where a lot more things would need to be changed if the Siege Tank would get that big of a buff. I agree it's like a good way to go about it. I just think that Blizzard is like too safe of a company to go for a change that's that big.
Moral, do you have a counter argument to that?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I always think that you can just quite easily tinker with the numbers. You could say like, all right, how do you want to play against Protoss? If you want to slow push them with Siege Tank Bio, you can do so. If you want to drop everywhere and just build Bio, you can do so, because like Medevac boost is insane. It's hard to let it go. So I think the units, like, they need to be strong, and then you as a player need to decide what army composition you want to go for. And I think you can always tinker with the numbers to basically prevent the strongest composition. I mean, in Terran versus Terran, for the longest time, people were balling between Bio and Mech. And then eventually, I guess Koreans at the end figured out, well, Mech was maybe a little bit better in the end there, but it took a fuck long time to realize it. And then if you end up playing a map like Terraform with a lot of like small choke points and areas to siege up, then you can maybe say, all right, I need to learn how to play a good Siege Tank Bio style on this map. But then you play Cactus Valley, which is completely open. Like, even if Siege Tanks are stronger, like, obviously dropping with Bio is going to be amazing here. So now I need to practice the Bio dropping style. So it just opens up more possibilities in the meta game. I think it's important that Terran is allowed more army compositions in the game right now, because I feel like they're the ones losing out a little bit here in Legacy of the Void. And I feel a big part of that is just the Siege Tank. It's just not a Siege Tank. It's just a fucking terrible unit. Nobody cares about the Siege Tank anymore. So I think it very much needs to be stronger to make Terran look interesting again. I don't want to see Bio for the rest of expansion again here.
I agree.
But I mean, like, if we look at Dota, right, and League of Legends, and how they always buff around and switch around the game, that's something that Blizzard could do about Terran, right? It's like, you know, 1 year Mech is stronger, and then the other year Bio is stronger. I mean, moving forward, we're done with expansions, right? So there's hope for Mech to be strong.
Yeah, I mean, I was just simply stating the fact, like, how to make the tank stronger in the other matchups without completely dominating in Terran versus Terran, like in the fucking Lost Temple days when it did 60 damage to everything. You built nothing but siege tanks and you split the map in 5 minutes. I mean, So you can't just simply just make it better. Was just the point I was making. If you just make it stronger, it's just gonna dominate turn versus turn because of how turn units operate compared to the other races.
All right. Next up, sorry for that weird transition. Liberator nerf. The range reduced. Can siege mode right away. Upgrade now increased range by 4, and you need the fusion core to get the upgrade on the tech lab of the starport. Beastie, were you like when you read this? Were you like sad? Because you know when you have something good and then it goes away. I mean, I was sad when the depth was nerfed.
When I saw this, I thought it's a buff. I thought like, oh, you can do timings with this. Like you don't need the upgrade, so the Liberator timings are going to be faster. Not like, you know, go behind the mineral line just attacking. But then I tried it in the game and I was like, no, this is a nerf. It's not a buff.
Yeah.
So I tried doing it against Zerg, and like the range is so short that the queens can just kill the Liberator every single time. I watched Bravo yesterday play against DRG, and the way he was using Liberators is he would bring like 6-7 SCVs, so when he sieges up, he would repair the Liberator so it wouldn't die while it sieges up.
Oh god.
And I think that's pretty sad. Like it's there's a plus side to it, which is when you get all in by Protoss, you can just make a Liberator, and if it's like mass adept, obviously it can deal with them. You don't need the upgrade, so reactionary it's better, but it's pretty much a nerf in every other way. Like you're not going to win a game by defending, so they nerfed the Liberator offensively. So yeah.
I mean, like, you're like a really big Terran. You like to fight for what can be improved for Terran, right? Like that's definite. But when we talk about it like from a neutral, non-biased point of view, this is great for the game, right? It's more counterplay to not dying to Liberators as far as mineral line goes. You agree with that, right? Like, so even though it's a nerf...
I don't think I've ever won a game by killing workers to the point where I win the game. I mean, maybe I'm just bad at using them.
Well, maybe you didn't win the game right away, but you crushed their spirits. You know that, right?
No, because the Protosses would open Stargate, and then Phoenix would come out, and my Liberator would be like, oh shit. And then it just dies.
I'm just messing with you. But,
I don't know, like... Okay, I agree. Like, it's something should have been done. Like, you shouldn't be able to, like, the problem where it is with Liberator is Ruins, for example. It pops in my mind. It's on other few maps probably, but Ruins of Ceras on the natural, you can see jump in the mineral line. Yes, that's OP. But killing the unit until you have fusion core, I'm not sure if it's the right call. And also, the one thing I don't get, you don't need Tech Lab to build Liberators. Why do you put an upgrade for the Liberators on the Tech Lab in Starport? Why don't you just put it on the Fusion Core if you require the Fusion Core to do the upgrade? It just seems so much like trouble even in the late game to add another Starport, to add a Fusion Core, to add a Tech Lab, and then the Tech Lab is useless. I don't know. I think the whole upgrade is way too expensive. Like, if you compare it to the new units from the other two races, for example, Disruptor, it comes out, it's ready to go. Liberator requires, a fusion core, a tech lab, and the upgrade just to get it to the state where it's like, okay, I can use this in fights. And like, I'm not gonna count mineral and gas, but that's way too much.
Okay.
To do all of those things.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But I'm just glad that they can't siege me on a mineral line. But then again, it's really hard for you, as you've been saying, and I can see why it would be hard with the recent nerf. Moro, did you have that? Did you make that change happen? Did you betray your former race?
Okay, well, I didn't make it happen. It's like something that we were talking about this during the fucking 4-hour or whatever talk show in the patch. So it was like Cat's theory. I can't remember who came up with the idea, but we were all aligned that this was a pretty good idea. I still think it's a pretty good idea because I was a Terran back then, and I thought it would be a big shame if they just made an upgrade that you basically need to attack the ground, because this would mean that as soon as you get the Liberator to attack the ground, then you're gonna be building them throughout the game because you have already put the resources into it, and this would be a pretty shitty way to fix the mineral line problem. So then we came up with a solution that you would basically have short range like it is now, and the upgrade would be a range increase. So I think everything is great, but getting a fusion core and then having the upgrade on the starport with the tech lab, it's just, I agree with Beastie, that's like 100% retarded. So it feels as a Titan, it just feels like a nerf because you have to get these all fucking buildings that you didn't need before. And it's not like a Liberator which just pops out and just building one vanilla Liberator is gonna do that much. Because I mean, he has pretty short range. You can't really abuse the mineral lines anymore, which I think that's good. But like, you don't really want to use them in the fight either. So it's still like you want to get the upgrade, right? Even if you make like one of them. So I think that's what they should be looking at right now, is putting the upgraded fusion core and probably even making a little bit cheaper, because I want Liberators to be about as strong as they used to be, or get into the game about the same time as they used to be in like an army composition, where we're just looking at ways to fix, you know, the early game mineral line problem. But yeah, overall it's a nice change. I think you just need to move the upgrade and make it a bit cheaper, and everybody's gonna be happy.
Okay. Penguin, are you happy that you can finally reach the Liberator now?
So I'm gonna preface my whole thing with just I do agree with Maro and Beastie on the note of changing the upgrade to the fusion core. I think it's really stupid that it's on a tech lab. That being said, I completely disagree with the fact that it has no utility until you get the upgrade. I agree that it's not like a super great staple of timing pushes or anything like that. But when I was playing, I played a lot of ladder today, and what I ran into a lot was a lot of people. Especially on maps like Moonlight Madness, where you can easily take a third base, just like going extremely fast third base, like 3 minute, 20 third base, while going up to extremely fast starport, and then just basically just pumping out 2 Liberators, one at the third, one in the behind the main, like you can't kill the mineral lines, but what they end up doing is you put one into the mineral line at the third, one into the natural, and then you have 5 Hellions, 6 Hellions at the front for the whichever base doesn't have a Liberator at it. And then all of a sudden what you're forced into is a position where you're forced to invest in a lot of defense or a lot of tech, deal with the Liberators and the Hellions / Hellbats, while behind that the Terran's already on 3CC, pumping out SCVs, maybe double upgrades behind that, and you just end up so unfathomably far behind economically. And like, that's my perspective on it. And it's kind of funny because we had you mentioned this in the pre-show a bit, but we had a bit of a large Twitter conversation between myself, a couple Zergs, a couple Terrans, and there seems to be some Terrans saying, "Oh, it's impossible to beat Zerg," and then on the other hand, and I'm in this camp, it was like a whole bunch of Zergs saying it's impossible to beat Terrans. So it's kind of funny, but like, from my perspective personally, I don't feel like the Liberator or like the individual units are so much of a problem. I feel like the bigger problem for me personally that I'm experiencing is that it becomes extremely difficult to keep up with Terran production into the mid game. And like, if you can get to ultras, then you win. But it kind of feels to me like carriers did in PvZ before, where it's like, or even now, where it's like, if you can get to the carriers, you win. But you're not going to get to the carriers, you know? Like, that's how I feel as ZBT. It's like, if I get the ultras, yeah, that's great, but I'm going to die to something. Like, I'm going to be behind an eco from the openings. And then if they parade push, I feel like there's not really that great a way to deal with parade push anymore since the larva nerf, because you just have no larva to work with. So, I don't know, like, I'm not a fan of the change because, like, I don't mind the change per se. It's just that I feel like they're addressing the wrong issues at the moment. I feel like they need to address some other issues, like the ability to just put the Zerg behind economically for little to no cost.
With what unit? The Liberator?
Oh, like, I mean, the Liberator is a good example. Yeah, like what I was talking about earlier is like I played against this a lot earlier today, where it's like just a couple of Liberators, a few Hellions at the front, and just opening really fast 3CC behind that.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more. So basically, the new Liberator, like, okay, the old Liberator, it was like so long range that, like, to answer to it, some Zergs were even saying, okay, you need like fucking 2 base Spire because Spore Crawlers aren't cutting it, Queens aren't cutting it, you know, Ravagers sometimes aren't even enough. So it was really problematic on some of these maps, and maps had to be, you know, designed towards, you know, the Liberator rush. And as a Protoss player, like, I'm no, you know, Protoss expert right now, but I felt like I had to build a Stargate blindly, just in case Terran is doing like a retarded 1-base Liberator. But if it does, then I completely destroy, you know, it with the Phoenix or whatever. But if I didn't go for that, then he would just sit there for like 2 minutes and I wouldn't have mining. So with the no Liberator, it's like I can answer to it with pylons, but these pylons have to be positioned away from my mineral line and have to be the edge of my cliff, and then I can photon overcharge, or I can panic, make some stalkers, and then I can answer to the fast Liberator. And the Zerg, it's like you can defend the Liberator, but you need some Queens already there, or you need a Spore Crawler already there before he sieges up. So it's not like going for Stargate to finally get rid of Liberator, and it's not going for Fast Spire to finally get rid of him. So now it's more about, you know, you can't deal with it with, you know, this earlier tech in the game, and that's why I think it's so great. And as a Terran, it's like if you go the way Liberator used to be, is basically that if you go for that Liberator upgrade and you invest everything in that, and during the time it's not done, and Zerg just shows up and attacks, or Protoss shows up and attack, you just have a Liberator that just sits there and does nothing. So it feels only natural to me that the unit would be somewhat useful before the upgrade. It's like Combat Shield gives 10 HP, it doesn't give like 50 HP, you know? And that's why I feel like it's a good direction of the upgrade.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the individual change to the Liberator. My point was just that I have a problem with the way they're approaching the matchup from or the TVZ matchup. I feel like it's not one of the bigger issues that they're addressing.
I mean, pre-upgrade, it sounds like you can deal with a Liberator right now, just like you can deal with a Banshee. If you have a couple of Queens there, and if you are there before he sieges up, then he's not going to siege up while the Queens are attacking. So you just need to be in position. It sounds just like a Banshee to me.
If you just make a Spore, like that's enough. The Liberator has 4 range. I'm pretty sure on any map, Spore can kill the Liberator. So you don't even need Queens, you don't even need to move your drones, you just make a Spore. And if Terran is investing into that early Liberators, that means he's not going to have Stim, he's not going to have, you know, Hellions, or maybe Hellions, but they're, you know, he's not going to have Widowmine, Siege Tanks, Stimmed by us, so he makes a unit that's 150, 150, if you just make 3 Spores and just mass drone turns behind. Which is why people now do the frontal attacks with Liberator that I've seen the Koreans, and they pull the SCVs. Because sending them behind mineral line is not worth anymore, because before, even if you don't kill anything, you make them like move the drones, you know, get back the drones, you unsiege, you move. But now the range is so short that even if you move it, the Queens are just gonna kill it if you like try to go, you know, behind a gas, or, you know, if you were shooting the mineral line. So I think right now people are testing with it to do like early game pushes with Hellbat Liberator. For example, yesterday I watched the game Bravo DRG that I mentioned. So one game, Bravo goes for the like 6 Hellbat, 6 Marines, 1 Liberator, 6 SCVs push. He comes in the natural, he sieges up on Moonlight. He sieges up like on the Zerg natural where the ramp is connecting to the main. So DRG is like trying to get the Liberator, he's repairing with 6 SCVs, he's killing the Queens and Zerg GG's. By the way, DRG tried like a Nidus on the other side. So he GG's. Next game, Bravo does exactly the same thing, except DRG builds a Spore and puts it in front of the Queens. And that push gets fucking destroyed like a joke. because the Liberator couldn't shoot because of the Spore. And you can't focus down the Spore with units because there's 4 or 5 Queens transfusing. So I think people are testing now with Liberator in the early game. I think in like a week, no one is going to use it. I might be wrong. People might still use it to attack. I just think that a Zerg that just has a couple of Queens and like a decent positioning, I think you should be able to defend it pretty easily. Although,
no, I'm not,
like
I feel like my point is not coming across. Like, my overarching point is not that the Liberator is a broken unit. My overarching point is that I just feel like Zerg can't keep up with Terran despite that. And, like, just kind of to address, like, Morrow said, it's similar to a Banshee. And, like, I just feel like it's not like the Liberator has no utility at all in the early game, especially with Defender mode enabled immediately. And the reason why I say that is like saying that the Terran is really far behind because it's like making spores or whatever is like saying that Protoss should never make an Oracle versus Zerg because it has no utility because they can make spores. Like, yeah, it's 150, 150, and the Zerg can make spores, but Oracles still do damage. Oracles still force the Zerg to invest into this, move drones around, stuff like that, apparently occasionally catch stuff out of position, etc., etc. Like, you can still get stuff done with the unit, and it's still, like, it's an investment. Yeah, like, if you get nothing done with the unit, of course you're going to be behind, but, like, the point that I'm making overall is that, like, not that the Liberator is broken and that Liberators are winning games by killing drones or anything. It's just that I feel like the larger problem that I'm having personally in ZBT is that with the lack of larva, it becomes a lot more difficult to keep up with the Terran in the mid game and reach the late game, where then the Zerg is overpowered.
So I've tried like a lot of pushes against Zerg, and I've come to a conclusion, and maybe this is just me. Like I said, I'm not the best player. I'm just, you know, a Terran player, and my conclusion is there's no point going aggressive against Zerg, like ever. Like, you should always triple CC and just go Baya. Any kind of tech, to me, like in games that I play, feels like such an investment that if you don't do damage, you're so far behind. Because if you do, let's say, any kind of push, like a Marine Hellion Liberator, if you don't kill drones, the mutas come out, and the amount of muta that comes out isn't like in HOTS, which is 5, it's like 10. And then you're stuck on your side of the map for so long that the Zerg gets creep spread all over the map and gets a free 4th base. And for you to do that, to maybe kill like 2-3 queens and force a lot of Zerglings, I don't think it's worth. I think with the faster economy, like just the way Legacy works, the Zerg has more queens and more units, while Terran pretty much has the same amount of units. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say. Same thing with Cloak Banshees. If you make a Cloak Banshee, by the time it gets to the Zerg base, you have Lair, which wasn't the case in Heart of the Swarm. So same against Protoss. Like, by the time the Cloak Banshee gets there, the Protoss has like Robo as Stargate and any kind of tech. This is not like Terran being weak. I'm not saying that, or Terran is, you know, garbage. I'm just saying like the harass units or the push potential against any race, not just against Zerg or Protoss, is a lot weaker because your economy is a lot faster. So it's same when the Protoss proxies an Oracle. You have enough units to defend it. While in HOTS, when the Protoss proxies an Oracle, you just die. Right, Muro?
Oh, sorry, I was distracted. Yeah, if they make an Oracle, you die. I remember this.
Yeah, so in Legacy, you have more units. So I think, in general, eventually, again, I might be wrong, I'm not genius, but I think that people will stop harassing because it's not worth the investment. Because most of the harass units that Terran has are not usable in fights except for the Hellions and Widowmines. So if you try to do that against Zerg, and if you don't do damage, you're behind.
Like, I see what you mean, but I don't agree necessarily, especially if players are opening Muta. I feel like if you can apply consistent pressure in the mid-game with a parade push, just like a standard Biomine parade push with like 4 Liberators, I feel like there's not a proper way to shut that down unless you're going Roach Ravager. Because what ends up happening is that you need, like, the proper way to shut down a parade push in HOTS is that you want to beat the army back a little bit, use the mutas to pick off medevacs, etc., etc. But you can't do that now because the liberate, like if you focus down a medevac, then and while you're trying to micro other stuff, for 2 seconds your mutas clump, and then like half of them are dead because of the 4 liberators just one-shotting them all. And like I feel like that's the kind of thing that I personally struggle with the most, because I feel like you need to throw more units at it to beat it back, but we have less units because we have less larva because of the larva nerf. So I just, whereas like you said, Terran has the same amount of units, but I feel like rather than Zerg having more units, I feel like we have less units since each inject only gives 3 larva instead of 4 now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we disagree there, but
I think
I'm
like,
also definitely not.
Either I'm bad at doing the pushes, or you're bad at defending them. I think like watching the games that you play are like the easiest way to figure out which one of it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also still has to be figured out, and I think like one of the biggest things, and this is more so in ZVP, but I think a lot of issues that are perceived as balance issues are going to kind of disappear when the localized servers come out, and we're not playing with 250, 300 ping anymore.
I don't know. People are always like, oh, we need to wait for the best players to play Legacy. Not you, but like people in general to figure out the strats. I think people are so like wrong about it. I think like you have the meta game that's right now. You're not gonna see like Terrans going, you know, rushed Raven into Widowmine drops into siege tanks. Like what you see now in Legacy, that's how the meta is going to be, because you're not going to see huge changes. This is how the games are going to play out. Sure, you might see like a timing here and there that's, you know, new and stuff. But I think what you see right now in the meta, how it works, it's how it's going to be when Legacy releases, even 6 months after, unless like huge changes come out. So I don't know. People just play the most effective way, like, you know, the Koreans, the pro gamers, to win. And what I've been seeing in TVZ at least is like hot Terran goes by a Widowmine, added Liberators instead of Thors, and Zerg goes Lingbane Mutant. So I don't know.
That's a bold statement, at least from my point of view. Mo, do you agree with Beastie that what we see in TVZ is going to be what we see at release, and then maybe potentially 6 months from now?
Not necessarily, but like I do kind of agree with him. Is that like there's a misconception that people have is that, you know, if I lose to every Zerg right now and I'm like 150, rank 150 Grandmaster, people will say, well, you obviously suck dick at the game, even though that might be true. Like I can still have a, you know, like my games can still represent balance a little bit. Like if everybody's losing to Zerg, it's not gonna be like SOS shows up and he's like, you know, this fucking savior, and he's just gonna show the way that everybody starts winning, and then it's gonna look balanced again. Like we don't need the best players right now to see the balance in the game, because the balance in the game is it's not close to being balanced. It's incredibly imbalanced. So you absolutely don't need the best players to find, you know, insanely good army compositions or figure out a good meta game. At the same time, you don't need the best players to see the balance either. So right now, like disruptor stalker in PvP, I don't think Koreans are gonna show up and they're just gonna not build disruptors because they fucking one-shot everything in the game. So that's kind of my point of view from it. So I think the games are gonna be similar, but obviously, if Penguin tells me Zerg is weak, from his games, I'm not gonna take that like seriously, because Penguin is not a pro gamer. If Beastie says that, I mean that holds as much value as sort of saying that Zerg is weak. Because right now sort of is a Zerg, and he says Zerg is weak against Terran, and Beastie the vice versa with Terran. So, I mean, if anything, to me that just sounds like, well, that matchup is obviously more balanced than Protoss versus Zerg, because here we have the Zergs and the Protoss saying that Protoss is shit. So I wouldn't worry too much about the balance in Terran versus Zerg right now. If I was David Kim, I would definitely not put that high up on the list, at least.
Okay, that makes